Does it really matter to you that your unsaved loved ones are dying and we're getting closer and closer to the end? Does it really concern you? They could die and go to hell. Even though you're a lover of Christ. Where's the mourning? Where's the fasting? I'm talking about the body of Jesus Christ.
Stunning article by Catherine Schulz in the New Yorker this week. And frankly, if I lived right now in the Pacific Northwest, I'd be considering moving. Seriously. The gist of it is this. The federal government estimates 13,000 Americans will die in a major earthquake and tsunami in the Pacific Northwest. It's not a question of whether, but when. This earthquake is coming, and it's overdue. Consider that the magnitude 9.0 earthquake in Japan just a few years ago, remember that? Killed more than 15,000 people in the north of Japan and injured thousands of others. Seismologists say that the quake that will strike on our Pacific Northwest coastline should be even stronger, at up to a 9.2. They call such a quake a margin rupture quake, and it's every bit as bad as it sounds. Here's the reason for it. Our entire continent sits on the North American tectonic shelf, right? Plate, I should say. Off the coast of the Pacific Northwest, from the top of Washington State all the way down to northern California. This is it. And another plate called the Juan de Fuca is trying to slide up under North America, but it's stuck. We have an illustration over here in the big wall. Let me show you what this is. This is our continent here. This is the Cascada Mountain, the North American plate here, and the Juan de Fuca plate here. This one's sliding up under, and eventually this is going to go down, send a huge wall of water up. That wall will go all the way over to Japan, and the other will come onto our shore within 15 minutes. And when it slips, it will unleash not only a colossal earthquake, but also that tsunami, 700 miles long, and in some places up to a 100-foot high wall of water and whatever it's pushing, like houses and dump trucks and schools. Thousands and thousands will not escape. The New Yorker quotes a FEMA official who says, and I quote, "Our operating assumption is that everything west of Interstate 5 will be toast." Everything west of Interstate 5 is gone. That's Seattle, Tacoma, Portland and Olympia, Salem and Eugene, wiped out. Altogether about 7 million people. That's not including tourists. So think of summertime. The New Yorker reports that FEMA calculations indicate the disaster will damage or destroy about 1 million buildings, including 3,000 schools and 1/3 of all fire stations. And perhaps the worst part of all of this, these sorts of earthquakes happen at regular intervals in exactly this part of the world, have forever. On average, according to seismologists, about every 240 years. So when was the last one of these? These massive 9.2 or so earthquakes? Well, the last one was more than 300 years ago, the year 1700. It struck in the Pacific Northwest and sent a 600-foot wave of water all the way to Japan. So right now, on average, the Pacific Northwest is decades overdue for the really, really big one.
Gosh, look, what do you have here? About 4 or 5 of them, something like that? I mean, this was a big tornado that actually did a lot of damage. Now, very often, you can't see the multiple vortices in a multiple vortex tornado because the view will be shrouded by either debris, rain, a condensation funnel. But in this case, you can see it. I guarantee you, in a lot of these big tornadoes, you've got that going on in the middle.
So cool.
Folks in Kensington have noticed a couple of holes in their streets.
On a scale of 1 to 10, a 12.
Marge Gilmore has lived in Kensington her whole life and has never seen the streets in such bad shape. She tells us she hurt herself 2 weeks ago after falling in this sinkhole on the 3400 block of Kime Street.
It was dark and I didn't even see it. I just fell in it. I hear myself scream, and the next thing I know, I'm in the hole.
Gilmore says she's getting physical therapy from the fall and plans on suing the city.
Just some peace of mind, and you know that's going to get fixed.
Neighbors say the hole has been there for about a month and a half. They called the city,
letting them know that it's getting worse and worse and worse, and no response.
Joseph Oldham blew out a tire and scraped his car driving over it.
The hole started off probably about that big, and now I can fit in it.
He really can. Oldham recently took this picture. He was standing on a crate and the box, leading him to believe the hole is about 8 feet deep. Oldham says he sent the picture to the city.
I figured that would get my point across to the streets department.
Just 2 blocks away on Crystal Street, another sinkhole has folks on edge.
No, it's very, very dangerous.
Neighbors say the hole has been getting deeper and deeper over the past few weeks. They've also noticed cracks starting to pop up around it, making them believe that the street will soon cave in.
I'm losing faith in Philadelphia departments.
City officials tell us the streets department will work with the water department to determine the cause of both holes and will barricade them off in the meantime.
Claiming the lives of 2 people in Japan. Japanese media reporting 2 elderly men died while trying to prepare their homes and land before the storm made landfall yesterday.
Officials are also checking out reports that a person was washed away by floodwaters. Denka is expected to weaken over the next several days, which could drop as much as 35 inches of rain in Japan.
A magnitude of 7.0 has hit off the Solomon Islands, but seismologists say it's unlikely to cause dangerous tsunami. The USGS said the quake struck about 80 kilometers off Lata Island around 2:30 p.m. Saturday local time.
Live pictures coming into us from Athens. This is of a huge fire on the east side of the Greek capital. We're being told that 35 fighters are tackling the blaze. Apparently it's spread very quickly because of high winds. This is the Imitos mountain and it's very near. You can't quite see the scale of it there, but you can almost see it encroaching onto very densely populated areas. Lots of pictures on Twitter of this as well, people taking pictures from their balconies and saying how close it is to their homes. A lot of concern there. They're saying it's on the Hymettus Ridge over Athens, very near a densely populated area. I'll keep an eye on those pictures and bring you more as we go.
Was the fiery scene on the highly trafficked Interstate 15 Friday afternoon. A brush fire on either side of the freeway forced traffic to stop. And soon, more than a dozen vehicles became engulfed in flames.
You can still see the cars that caught fire. They're burning there in the middle of your screen. They've actually made some drops onto those cars as well.
It was terrifying. You can feel the heat on our face.
17-year-old Talia Sclafani took this photo as she ran to safety. The water drops continued, but flames jumped from vehicle to vehicle. Passenger cars, a semi-truck, a car hauler, and even a boat were completely destroyed.
And before we knew it, the winds picked up and it came rushing and they evacuated everybody. We all had to run up the hill as far as we could go.
Motorists were able to return to their cars once the flames on the freeway were safely extinguished.
Couldn't get out. It started over at that end, I believe, and then it slowly started to move forward, and then it jumped the lane.
But the fire continued to burn into nearby brush into the evening hours, burning structures and forcing evacuations.
Top of breaking news right now. A lightning strike at Del Mar Park in Aurora sends 4 people to the hospital. Fortunately, all of those people were not directly hit and only had minor injuries. A witness telling us the lightning may have struck the pool and injured lifeguards at the park.
We seen the lightning start coming out, and then the lightning hit this tree over here. And it was just a big boom, and everybody just scattered. Then we seen them carrying a couple lifeguards out of the pool.
Now, we're still waiting to confirm details with Aurora Fire. This all coming just one day after 4 people were hurt in a lightning strike in Chaffee County.
The Evergreen State is, well, not so much right now. Washington State water experts told me today 99% of the state is in a drought, and the dry spell is causing a tidal wave for the economy. The heat is hurting berry crops. Most of the nation's raspberries are grown here. Livestock feed is withering, and the heat is stressing cattle. Washington is second to California in wine production in the country, but natural resource leaders tell me fruit in Washington vineyards and orchards is getting sunburn. Like Oregon, Washington is shutting down fishing on many rivers or limiting hours to try and save native species. Really, no choice when about 85% of the rivers are running lower than normal. about half at record lows. The Olympic National Park in northwest Washington is normally the wettest spot in the lower 48. Now, it's so dry there, 1,600 acres in its wilderness are on fire. How bad is it going to get? Washington state climatologists told me odds are we're going to stay drier and warmer than normal, even through next winter.
Released a 17-second film showing Queen Elizabeth at about 6 years old when she was just a princess, her sister Princess Margaret at her side, the Queen Mother, and their uncle, the Prince of Wales. Now, the film appears to show the royals performing the Nazi salute. The palace says, quote, "It is disappointing that film shot 8 decades ago and apparently from Her Royal Majesty's personal archive has been obtained and exploited in this manner." Now, the Queen's uncle Edward was accused of being a Nazi sympathizer during the rise of Hitler in the 1930s. He abdicated the throne in 1936 to marry American socialite Wallis Simpson.
The annual State of the Climate report released Thursday said 2014 was the warmest year on record, going back 135 years. Temperatures continued to rise and glaciers kept shrinking. The impact has been dramatic in Greenland, the huge ice-covered island between the North Atlantic and the Arctic Oceans.
San Diego, actually washing out roads, tearing down trees, even bringing down a bridge. Roads, cars underwater, manholes, sinkholes reported. Desert Center, California, a bridge collapsing, trapping a truck beneath the debris. Fire officials say this is some of the heaviest rain they've ever seen.
I've worked here for almost 17 years, and I've seen that Alvarado Creek fill up and get pretty high and flowing really good, but never to the point where it got this high and coming over the road and almost into the trailer parks.
San Diego seeing more rainfall than it's ever seen in the month of July.
The National Weather Service confirmed an EF1 tornado touched down in Rock and Walworth counties on Saturday. In Johnstown, near Janesville, the tornado ripped through a barn and destroyed 2 farm buildings nearby, just a mess left behind. Officials say that tornado traveled 5 miles.
This is from Mount Sinabung in Sumatra, Indonesia. Now, this volcano sits at more than 8,000 feet tall and has been dormant for 400 years. That is until 2010 when it started erupting again. And residents there have been reporting on increased activity there for the past few weeks and getting some very scary imagery just like this. So it's a serious situation. Another volcano that we wanted to bring you, time-lapse video of this out of Colima, Mexico. This volcano has been active in years past, but reported to be the most intense activity since early 1900s.
어린 날 시베네